Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, I left a landlord and property management company with a loss because they tried to nickel and dime me. What's your name again? You mildly inconvenience my laundry schedule? I'll mildly inconvenience yours. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I left a landlord and property management company with a loss because they tried to nickel and dime me. I know the title is bad, but hear me out. This happened a while ago after I relocated to a new city. I signed a new one-year lease for a townhouse in the downtown core and really enjoyed where I lived. The townhouse was okay, but a little less nice than I anticipated during my showing. Caveat emptor, I suppose. The only other relevant background is the lease said the security deposit would be used for the last month's rent and would not be held as a damage deposit. The year passed with very few problems. The water heater went out in the dead of winter, but I stayed in a hotel for 3 nights and offset that cost against the rent after verbally agreeing with the landlord to do so. At the end of the year, the landlord asked if I wanted to renew. I said yes. I was presented with a 1-year extension for the same rent. I signed it and sent it back. I waited about 2 weeks and hadn't received the landlord signed version back, so I inquired with the management company. They said the landlord was mad because they didn't get rent on the first of the month most of the time. I asked what they were talking about because I always paid on or ahead of time, and they said that while I paid the management company on time, as required by the lease, the management company hadn't gotten it into landlord's hands in time. I said that wasn't my problem per the lease, but the management company requested $100 more per month on the extension to make up for the inconvenience. They said they would send me a new lease reflecting the $100 increase, which they did. I immediately went out and found a condo in a similarly ideal location which was much nicer that rented for $75 a month less than my existing rent. I went through the background check with them and they sent me a lease to sign. Before signing the new lease, I sent a certified letter to landlord and the management company of the old location saying my previous signature on the new lease, which had not yet been countersigned, was revoked and ineffective because of their counteroffer and no longer capable of acceptance. I then signed the new lease. At that point, I had about 10 days left on the existing lease. The management company and landlord called me freaking out because they wouldn't be able to find a new tenant in time and would lose revenue. I said not my problem, hired a moving company, cleaned up the old place and returned it to them in the same condition I received it. What's your name again? Names changed to protect the innocent and the very, very stupid. Many moons ago, I worked at a now-defunct convenience store/gas station in the Midwest. I was initially a bit reticent to take a job at a convenience store because it was just the sort of place that you always hear about getting robbed. However, it was new, brightly lit, clean, and on a very busy road. Also, I needed a second job pronto cause university is expensive and girls gotta eat. Ramen and peanut butter only goes so far. After I started working there, I quickly realized that my worries about being robbed were probably unfounded as my store was somehow the meeting point for all of the police. The local city cops, the county sheriff, and even detectives all wandered into my store multiple times a day. They would stand around and chat with the staff or just stop in for a snack or drink on the way to work. This comes into play later. So, while I didn't have to worry about robbers and I actually kind of enjoyed the job, there was one major annoyance. I got along well with all of the employees, but one, his name was Branson. Branson was in his early 20s, fairly well-spoken and intelligent, but wouldn't you know it, he just knew everything. Since he knew everything, it was obvious that the Lord Almighty had put him on this earth to tell everyone else about everything. No matter what you were talking about, he knew more and better than you even on matters involving your own history. wouldn't think that was possible, but he had an opinion about the cafeteria in the hospital my mother worked in when I was a child. Not a joke, he really did. While he wasn't the first know-it-all I'd met, he had an even more annoying personality trait. Branson was a tattletale. You didn't stock the coolers before he got there? Tattle. Didn't clean the bathrooms before he came in? Tattle. Didn't make more coffee? Tattle. No matter how minor or downright wrong he was, he just had to run and tell management. As such, they were just as annoyed by him as the lowly cashiers. Once he almost got me fired by telling the managers that I allowed one of my friends to steal from the store. Luckily, we were absolutely lousy with cameras. So after a few minutes of desperate pleading for the manager to check the CCTV footage, they discovered that Branson was, in fact, full of it if not lying for his own amusement. When it was proved he was wrong, did he apologize? Of course not. He was never wrong in all of his livelong days because he, of course, knew everything. I was, as they say, not remotely fond of Branson. One day, the store was filled with law enforcement as per usual, 2 sheriffs and 4 or 5 local city cops. It was at shift changeover and me and my coworker were ready to hand off our shift to Branson. There were no other customers, so we were all standing around talking and just enjoying the banter. It just so happened that the sheriff's supervisor was there. His name was Bucky. Bucky was a good old boy, salt of the earth and one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. He'd give you the shirt off of his back if he thought you looked a bit chilly. Now, while I was chatting with some of the other boys in blue, Bucky was talking to Branson. I wasn't entirely listening to their conversation until it started to go a bit pear-shaped. Bucky was talking about something and Branson, in his usual way, just had to start arguing with him that he was wrong because Branson just knew that it was X instead of Y. Then he took it a step further and suggested that as a lawman, Bucky didn't have the schooling that Branson did, and it was only natural that Branson would know more about the subject. Bucky just smiled, and rather than argue, he removed himself from the conversation and walked around the counter to the other side. He caught my eye and motioned me over. He then asked me what Branson's last name was, and not seeing any reason not to, I told him. He thanked me and drifted off into the store. I honestly didn't think anything more about it and went back to my conversation with the others. After a few minutes, Bucky walked up with a vaguely puzzled look on his face and asked Branson, "Hey buddy, what was your name again?" Branson, sounding a little annoyed and as if he were schooling a child, answered him. Again, Bucky walked back off into the store. When Bucky returned, he had a big old grin on his face. He motioned Branson to come to him from behind the counter and said, "Your name was Branson, right?" Branson confirmed it was, and Bucky's grin widened further as he reached for the handcuffs on his belt. "I am so happy to hear that because there's a warrant out for your arrest and I'm going to have to take you in. I'm going to need you to turn around for me and put your hands behind your back." At that, all of the conversation died entirely. I exchanged a well-earned shocked Pikachu face with my coworker. The shocked expressions on our faces melted away into absolute delight as our most annoying coworker was handcuffed and taken out of the store. I never did see Branson again, but Bucky was back later that evening and apologized to me for making me stay late. I told him I didn't mind and it was all worth it for the show. I'd have done it all over again just to see an idiot sabotage himself. Life tip: if you've got a warrant out for your arrest, probably best if you don't annoy a cop, he might just take out his own petty revenge. You mildly inconvenience my laundry schedule? I'll mildly inconvenience yours. I was doing laundry in my dorm building. I had 2 loads in the washers, and I went down to switch them to the dryers. I opened both of my washers, and luckily there were 2 empty dryers left. The rest were full cause people leave their sh*t in for ages. I opened both dryers. I put 1 load of laundry into 1 dryer, shut the door, and started it. I began to gather my other load of laundry, and just as I was about to carry it over to the dryer, a guy walked in. He took one single jacket out of a washer and cut in front of me to toss it into the one dryer I had opened and was walking towards to put my laundry in. I stood there for a second with my laundry in my arms, expecting him to notice and be like, "Oh, my bad, were you using that one?" Simple dorm laundry etiquette in my experience, but he just walked out. So after stopping my previous dryer and rearranging my clothing and taking some out to air dry so both loads would fit in the one dryer, I went over to his dryer and pressed stop before leaving. Now when he goes down to get his one jacket in 40 minutes, it'll still be wet. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.